Hey there, Stat 216ers, and welcome to a quick video to help you get started on Activity 4. So to get to Activity 4, you want to navigate to Content, then down to Module 3. It's already highlighted for me here. And to get started, while you're watching this, or hopefully before you started watching this, you click on the usually formatted instruction, quote-unquote, web page. And this document gives us a description of what's going on in this activity. So you can read along with me or see on your own that in this activity, we're going to be examining some FWP data from the 2020 deer hunting season about what types of deer Montanans harvested. In particular, we want to answer the question of whether or not Montanans harvest more whitetail or mule deer annually. We want to look at which districts yield the most deer and which yield the most deer by species, which districts yield the most big bucks, and we want to also address whether or not the big bucks are spread out evenly around northwest Montana. Now remember that there are some links in here, and if you can't open the links in Eagle Online, you might have to right click and select open in a new tab. But for instance, right clicking on that link brings us the MT Hunt Planner, the Montana FWP Hunt Planner. I think there's some cookies you have to accept, but it's basically a map of all the hunting districts. And some of the questions are going to ask you to look at this map and try to address some discrepancies that we might see in the data that are some things that might throw a small wrench in our data analysis. But that's for a later date and later time. So how do we actually get started? Well, as usual, we want to start a lab report and we want to load some packages. So I'm going to load the packages first in the console. Just like it says there. So we're going to load Knitter. We're going to load Tidyverse. And we're going to load OpenIntro. Those are just a default for me these days. I'm not sure if we're going to need all of them, but we're for sure going to need Tidyverse and we're for sure going to need Knitter. Great. Next up, as usual, we want to create a reproducible lab report. So we're going to go File, New File, create a Markdown document from a template like usual, and then we want a lab report for intro. It looks like the usual one isn't there for some reason, but we'll take the lab report for OpenIntro Statistics 1, and I'm going to call this one Activity 4 Lab Report. Okay. I'll get started. The nice thing about this is it just formats everything very well. I'm going to say Lab 4. Title will be Montana Deer Harvest. You don't have to be as careful about that, but at least be sure to call it Lab 4. Put your name here so I know whose stuff I'm looking at. This little command puts the day's date. Don't mess with this. I'm going to add library Knitter to be safe in the load packages deal, and then I'm going to delete all of the exercises that are in here. So this is something from the OpenIntro folks that's relevant to us. So for our first exercise, exercise. There we go. Exercise 1. There we go. We're ready to roll now. And so either before exercise 1 or inside exercise 1, it doesn't really matter. You need to load the data, and to do that, of course, you need to start an R code chunk. So we want to do R. I'm going to call this code chunk load data. Close up my code chunk, and we can simply copy and paste this here. This is going to look very familiar to what you did in the last 2 activities. And just to give you a brief word about it, so this is a web address. If we copy and paste this into a web browser, you can see what is going on. This is not very interesting or very relevant to us. It's just a raw text file as a CSV of the data set. So when you store that URL as a URL, what's going on next is that that R is checking to see if the file that you're looking for exists, and if it doesn't, it's downloading this file from the URL that we defined, and then it's naming it deer.csv. So this is downloading a CSV file to RStudio for you, and then it's loading the CSV file into RStudio through the read.csv command. So our data set is called deer right now. So we have our data loaded. We're going to run all code chunks above, then run this guy. Notice that it says trying this stuff, blah, blah, blah. It downloaded the data set, and now we've loaded it. So since we have tidyverse loaded, we can view the data set to get a look at it. It's a little bit nicer than the raw data set that we were looking at before. So what's going on with it? The data set gives us the district, hunting district that we have counts for, the species, and then this is a list of counts. So it's giving us the number of mule deer harvested, the number of whitetail harvested, the number of bucks out of it, the number of does, the number of fawns, the number of small bucks, and the number of big bucks out of the total buck harvest there. And it has these counts for every district in Montana. And so you can read a little bit more about how these districts are numbered, but basically the first number is the region, and then each region is divided into smaller districts. Northwest Montana is District 1. So the stuff around the districts closest to us are all those in the 100s. But this is harvest data from 2020 for the entire state. All right, that gets us our data loaded. We can exit out of there and now move on to working on exercise 1 if we want. I might give you a quick hint on doing that. I'll let you read more about it. So if we want to answer the very first question in exercise 1, how many deer were harvested in 2020 ignoring species? Well, the hint tells us what to do. We want to add up the harvest column of our data set. So in our first code chunk, this is more of a hint than I planned on giving you, but it's only the first part of one question. Maybe we'll call this code chunk harvest. How would we find that? Well, we want to add up all of the numbers in the harvest column. There we go. So this will spit out the total number of deer harvested in 2020, and it was almost 105,000, which is a surprising number to me. So then your next step is to analyze the proportion of deer that were whitetail and the proportion of deer that were mule deer. And there are a few ways that you can go about that. You can use tidyverse commands, or you can follow the suggestion that I did down here. Using subset, you can make a data set that's just mule deer. So if we add this into our code chunk, we'd say mule is that guy, and we set whitetail to the subset deer species for the deer guy, where species equals whitetail. That'll give us 2 new data sets. Of course, there's an error. I forgot my quotation mark, or my apostrophe. There we go. Now we have those 2 guys, and we can look at, for instance, some mule harvest. We can also look at some mule, or some, that one, whitetail harvest as well. Now if we evaluate this code chunk, this is going to give us the total number that we harvested, the total number of mule deer, the total number of whitetail deer. That doesn't quite answer the second part, but it gets you really, really close. And once you roll in here, you should be good to go for the rest of the assignment. Thanks for watching. Good luck on this activity. Please reach out to me if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, or if you find any glaring typos that are screwing things up. Again, I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you soon. Thanks for watching.